Which brings me to the big events that were taking place last night. TripleMania 29 and New Japan's Resurgence show in Los Angeles. I was at Citi Field last night for the Mets game, Mets against the Dodgers. Of course, we all know how that ended. We don't have to talk about that. But once I got home, I wanted to play catch up with the shows. And on the TripleMania side, the big match, the big main event last night was Kenny Omega, who just lost his Impact World Championship the night before on TNT to Christian, which I'm going to talk about in a second. But he was in Mexico to defend his AAA Mega title against Andrade El Idolo. And Andrade did not come alone. He arrived, he was accompanied to the ring by his soon-to-be father-in-law, the Nature Boy, Ric Flair, who just got his WWE release, whether you believe he asked for it, as he claims, or whether or not he was basically let go, which I kind of tend to believe that was the case, because why else give up a very high-paying gig to pretty much do nothing with the WWE? But regardless, he was released, and the impression was that it was not a full unconditional release, that he would have some kind of non-compete period where, until he was legally able to do so, he would not be able to go anywhere. So I don't know what his status is as far as that goes. He may have just looked at the situation and said, well, fuck it, what are they going to do to me? We don't know. Maybe he was free and clear. We'll find out, obviously, very soon. I mean, this just happened last night, so we don't have all the details yet. But it was a big surprise to see how quickly he turned up somewhere else. And so he escorted Andrade to the ring for his match. I thought Andrade and Kenny had a very good match with a surprise finish. I thought for sure that Andrade was leaving with that AAA Mega title. But Flair got physical, and you knew he wasn't going to be able to help himself. Right? 72 years old. He's been on social media recently posting gym selfies and talking about how he'll never retire. So, of course, he got physical. There was a spot near the end where Flair stopped Omega. He got in the ring. He took his jacket off. He got in the ring. And he stopped Omega from hitting Andrade with the Mega Belt. And then Flair and Andrade took turns chopping Kenny Omega. And Flair knocked him down with a right hand. Flair chopped Konnan down because Konnan was in Omega's corner. There was no Don Callis. I guess Konnan was playing the role of Don Callis here on this night. Flair chops him down. And then he and Andrade put Omega and Konnan in dueling figure 4 leg locks. I think the last time I saw Flair do a spot like this with a family member, I mean, maybe he did with Charlotte once, and I just don't remember, but if you recall, when his son Reed, before he passed away, he was first starting to get involved in wrestling, and it might have been his first match. There was some kind of tag match at an independent show, and I recall them doing the same spot where I think Reed and Rick both did stereo figure 4s at the same time. So that's kind of what that reminded me of. But there's Ric Flair dropping down, putting the figure 4 on Konnan. This guy so badly wants to get back in the ring for another match. You can just tell. And with the referee distracted, which by the way is a horrible idea and should not happen. I know Dominic DeNucci was still doing it at 80 years old, but we don't need to see Ric Flair back in the ring except to do, a chop here and there is fine. But in an actual match, no, we don't need to see that. But with the referee distracted with Konnan, Omega hit Andrade with the belt and then hit the One-Winged Angel to retain the championship. I thought that, Kevin Dunn's camera cuts were bad in WWE. And we had a little Kevin Dunn appearance on television this week. He popped his head up like the Groundhog on Groundhog Day. I don't know if you noticed that in the segment in the production truck with Seth Rollins on SmackDown Friday night. There he was. He was hiding out behind Seth. Oh, you could see him. We could see him sitting there. But I thought Kevin Dunn's camera cuts in WWE were bad. AAA made him jealous with the way they shot that match last night. Jesus Christ. This camera cut crap has got to stop. But then I switched over to the New Japan Resurgence show. Didn't have any camera cut issues on this show. From the Torch, in Los Angeles, right outside the LA Memorial Coliseum. What was to have been the site of WrestleMania 7. But who knew that they couldn't sell 100,000 tickets to see Hulk Hogan defeat the evil Iraqi sympathizer? So they moved it into the smaller building. But by all means, please continue to tell the story that it was a bomb threat. From what I saw, I did not see the entire show. Again, I had come from the ball game and I was trying to watch the AAA stuff. But from what I saw, I did see the match with Moose and Tomohiro Ishii. And I thought that match kicked ass. That was the best Moose match that I have ever seen in my life. He looked great. Ishii never doesn't look great. I mean, Ishii is awesome. So I really enjoyed that match. We had a surprise appearance by Will Ospreay, who suffered a very serious neck injury a number of months ago, and it looked like he was going to be gone for a very long time. It was bad enough that they stripped him. New Japan stripped him of the IWGP Heavyweight Championship only a couple of months after he won the damn thing, or 2.5 months, I think it was. But there he is, and he comes out as this big surprise and takes the microphone, said he's not happy to be there. He just had to come out and make the announcement that he has been medically cleared. And he teased joining the field for this year's G1 Climax, which is starting up next month, before saying that, now, you know what, I'm not even going to go back to Japan. I think I'm going to hang around here. He says he broke his neck for New Japan, and they stripped him of his IWGP Heavyweight title, which is true. That's what they did back on May 20th, is when they made the announcement. He said he gets it, but Jon Moxley had the United States Championship for a year and did not defend it once. And New Japan did not strip it from him, which is true. He makes a good point. Ospreay called the current IWGP champion, Shingo Takagi, a pussy. He said Shingo's an interim champion and Ospreay is the real world champion. He pulled out the IWGP belt and said that he would defend it against anyone, anytime, any place. So we have ourselves a Shawn Michaels Razor Ramon situation now with the dueling IWGP belt. Actually, it reminds me of the Summer of Punk in 2011 and what they did with CM Punk and John Cena, which I'm going to be covering in this week's history segment a little bit later on. That's what this reminds me of. But Ospreay says in the meantime, he's going to focus on New Japan Strong here in the States because they need a big star right now because all they have are those LA Dojo jobbers. And 2 of those LA Dojo jobbers came out. His words, not mine. Carl Fredericks and Clark Connors, they came out. They were trying to start a fight with Ospreay. TJP was there. He came out to try to calm them down. And Ospreay teased putting TJP over. He was going to, talk him up, but then he turned around and called him a bitch. And TJP got up in Will's face. But just as he and Fredericks and Connors were about to walk away, Ospreay, he said something to them. I didn't pick up on what it was, and then he ran off. So Will Ospreay is back a lot sooner than I think a lot of people expected him to be. And this is interesting now because it looks like they're going to have this angle ongoing for a while where you have Shingo in Japan, who is the official defending IWGP champion. And I got some news on him here in a second, and it doesn't look great. And then you're going to have Ospreay here, I guess, stateside for a while, claiming to be the real champion, defending against, some of the younger talents. And obviously they're going to build to a unification match at some point. So that's a huge talent for them to get back. New Japan has been ravaged by COVID and the travel restrictions and other restrictions locally in Japan that, in a lot of cases have prevented them from having crowds of more than 3,000 or 5,000 people, if even that. I mean, things were pretty bad over in Japan and the state of emergency over there. There have been other injuries. I don't know what the status of Kota Ibushi is. I had heard that he was very, very sick. He had some bad pneumonia. I hope he's doing better now, but I haven't heard an update on him. So to get Ospreay back is huge for New Japan. Yuji Nagata was the mystery partner for Jon Moxley. He was going to be taking on Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson with some kind of mystery partner. Eddie Kingston would have been too obvious. I thought maybe it would be someone like Sami Callihan, who has had issues at Impact recently with Gallows and Anderson. It turned out to be Nagata, probably somewhere in the middle where I didn't think it would be Nagata, but not exactly a huge surprise. Obviously, the 2 of them wrestled on Dynamite not that long ago for the IWGP US belt, and we know Moxley has a lot of respect for Nagata, and people there seem to be happy to see him, so He was the mystery man. Nagata also was there to take the losing fall. And after the match, the Gorillas of Destiny showed up to confront Anderson and Gallows, who bailed. Jay White retained his never openweight title over David Finlay. Crowd was far more into Jay White than they were into Finlay. I thought the match was good. I mean, not quite 4 stars good, but it was good. Ishii came out after the match to tease challenging White for the title next, which should be great. And then we had Tanahashi challenging Lance Archer for the IWGP United States Championship in the main event. I thought this was solid stuff, with Tanahashi selling most of the way and then making his big comeback and hitting some high-fly flows in the end to get the win. This was definitely not any sort of classic New Japan-style main event, but with the win, Tanahashi has now held every major championship in New Japan history. He has held the IWGP Heavyweight title, the Intercontinental title, which is now retired, the United States Championship, the Never Openweight title, the Tag Team Championship, 3 times G1 Climax winner, 2 times winner of the New Japan Cup. This man has done it all. And after the match, Jon Moxley, who was in the audience watching this entire thing, Moxley stood up. He looked pissed and angry, and he walked off. And Lance Archer got the mic, and he said, Tanahashi truly is the ace of New Japan. He's glad that Tanahashi brought New Japan to Los Angeles, but he says he wants him to come to AEW. And Archer said he wants his rematch in AEW. He bowed to Tanahashi. They bumped fists out of respect. Tanahashi thanked the crowd. He did his air guitar to end the show. Now that the seed has been planted publicly, this confirms that we will be getting a Tanahashi title defense soon on AEW television. The only question is when. All Out is coming up on September 5th. But the G1 Climax kicks off a few weeks later. I think it's about 3 weeks or 2.5 weeks maybe. I don't know if Tanahashi, offhand, I don't know if it's been announced if he is in the G1 or not. I would expect him to be in it. I'd be kind of surprised if he wasn't. If he is, you still have the COVID quarantines, I think, in Japan. Like when you're traveling back in, you have to quarantine, I think, for either 10 days or 2 weeks. So unless things have changed, I believe that is still in place. That's going to be cutting things a little bit close. So there's always the possibility that even though it makes total sense to try to get him on that All Out show, logistically, if it interferes with the G1 or it interferes with some other New Japan show that he's supposed to be at, he might not be able to be. He might not be able to appear on the All Out card, but it looks like Archer is going to be getting his rematch first before Moxley gets his shot at Tanahashi. And then comes the news this morning, which is what I alluded to a moment ago with Shingo. New Japan made the announcement they have pulled Shingo Takagi, their IWGP champion, and Bushi from today's non-televised Summer Struggle event due to both men coming down with a fever. And they announced that they would both be getting PCR tests and they would be held off the show. They were scheduled for an 8-man tag team main event. They both worked yesterday's event in Japan. There was an event on Saturday night. But they have fevers, and New Japan is not taking any chances with any of this stuff. And so that is the update on Shingo and Bushi, and hopefully both will end up being just fine.